Hi, Claudia here from Create with Claudia. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm going to be showing you how to make this mosaic block. It's just a small little block. I'm going to be showing you how to make the 6.5 inch one. It's a great scrap busting block and it's lots of fun to make. It's also pretty easy. This block is also part of my 2021 Stars of the Prairie mystery quilt. If you're joining in that and you're here because of that, thank you for joining in and welcome. All of the instructions for the quilt along are at the end of the video, at the end of the tutorial, the block tutorial, so you can find how much you're going to need, how much fabric you're going to need, that sort of thing for all of the blocks. But to start, I'm just going to show you how to make this little block. As always, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. I always love new subscribers. Thank you so much. And I am on social media at Create with Claudia, where I post things daily, all sorts of fun projects, that sort of thing. So thanks so much for stopping by and enjoy the video. So here's the block we're going to be making today. This is the mosaic block. It measures 6.5 inches square, and this is the fabric you're going to need for this one. You're going to need of this, I'm going to leave this here actually for reference, for this dark purple, which is I consider the background fabric. You're going to need one square cut 4¼ inches square, 4¼ inches square. And then still with the background fabric, you're going to need 2 squares cut 2.5 inches square. So 2 cut 2.5 inches square and 1 cut 4¼ inches square. Now, for this center part, which is easy, it's just 1 square, and that's cut 2 5/8 inches, and that's going to be this dark purple, and that sort of refers back to this light purple here. And then for these outer squares, I'm using the purple here, and for this I use the purple, the polka dots. 4 squares cut 2 5/8 inches. So 4 squares cut 2 5/8 inches for these, and then 1 cut 2 5/8 inches for the center. And that's all there is to it. And now we're ready to start assembling the block. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you're going to take your 2 squares that are cut, get the fuzz off of them first. You're going to take the 2 squares that are cut 2.5 inches, and you're going to take your rotary cutter and a ruler, move these out of the way a little bit, and you're just going to cut on the diagonal from one corner to the other. You're just going to split these in half, like so, and then we'll repeat it with the next one. Alright, so now we're going to set those aside. We'll use those in a little bit. So for the next step, you're going to need those 4 squares that were the same color. So these 4 squares that are cut 2 5/8 inches. And what you're going to do is take one of these triangles you just cut from the 2.5 inch square, and you're going to line these up and center them. Now there's a couple ways, because what you're going to do is you're going to add, basically, let me move this out of the way. When it's done and sewn, it's going to look a little bit like that. That's what your unit's going to look like when you're done. So the one thing you're going to do is you're going to right sides face, you're going to put these together. Now here's a trick. You can either eyeball it, which I do, which I probably shouldn't, to make sure that this, let me get a pencil here to point, to make sure that these 2 sides are equal. You want that point right here to be exactly center to your square. Now the other way, which is a good way to do it, is you can finger press your square in half, and just, it'll give you a little marking line. It'll press out really easily. So if you can hopefully see that, you can sort of see your center point right there, and then you can line up your triangle that way and get that point right there. Hopefully, let's see if you can see that, like so. And then of course line up this edge. And just, you're going to have to manipulate. It does take a little bit of time. Like I said, when I'm in a rush, I sort of eyeball this, but it's up to you. You can also mark it if you prefer, if you're more comfortable with that. That should be good. I'm going to just check it on the back. It looks good and even. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch down this side, a nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to repeat that with the next 4. So I'm going to put one of those triangles on each of these units just like this. So when I'm done, I'll come back, I'm going to press them open and I'll come back and show you what they look like. Okay, so here's how they turned out. Here's all 4 of them, and I pressed them to the outside like so. There we go. And we're going to set those aside. We're actually going to use 2 of them now. So I'm going to put 2 aside for later. And I'm going to put 2 over here. The next thing we want to do is get that 4 1/4 inch square that we cut out earlier. And with this one, we're going to cut this 2 ways. We're going to cut this on the diagonal this way and then on the diagonal this way. And it can be a little tricky. So you just I try to leave my square in place. Let me move these out of the way. Just from corner to corner. And then if you can do it without moving, you're going to cut. And this is hard on the camera. I'm at a weird angle. I might have to stand up for this one. There we go. And there we go. So now it's in 4 pieces, and we are ready to use those. So if you remember, I said we're going to use 2 of these for right now. And the first thing you're going to do now with this unit and one of these triangles, let me move these out of the way, you're going to line this up. It's going to end up looking like this, but we need to sew those onto the sides. So we're going to start with this one, right side's facing. And you're going to line that up. This is easy. You get the square to help you line it up. You're just going to line that up like so. You can flip it over to make sure you don't see any fabric. And you're going to sew from here to here a 1/4 inch. Sort of like you're adding a wing to this. So again, I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch from here to here, and I'm going to do this on the other unit as well. And I'll be right back. Okay, so that's been added on the one side. Here are both of my units right here. Put those the right way. And now we're going to add the other triangle to the other side, like so. So we're going to do the same process, just right sides together, line them up in that corner, and sew a 1/4 inch down there, and we will be done with this part of the block. Alright, so here are these 2 side triangles. They're all finished, and now we just need to make the center part of the block. So I'm going to set those aside. You're going to take those other 2 sort of squares and triangles, and in this one you're going to have your center block here, and you're going to sew them together like this. Just, whoops, one side to one, the other side to the other. Now, one thing I wanted to show you on this unit, or this part of the block, I pressed everything to the outside. So to help it nest, when I finish sewing this, I'm going to sew this one to the inside. And that way you'll get a nice smooth seam there. So I'll be right back once I sew this part to this one and this part to that one. Alright, so this is now finished, nicely pressed. Here you can see I pressed to the inside, and here you can see where I pressed to the outside. And what's going to happen now is we're going to sew this block together. And we're going to just add one corner at a time, and you're going to pin here, right sides together. And I would pin at this seam, and see how when we press the one to the outside and one to the inside, it nests really nicely together, so you're going to get a nice smooth seam there. And I would pin, or I pin, right there so that it doesn't shift when I'm sewing. And then I'll put another pin here. And you just want to get it just right. There's my other pin. Alright, and then we're going to even up those edges. You might want to pin it here at the ends too. I probably wouldn't. If you've watched my other videos, I'm notorious for not pinning a lot. But it's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. So then we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam, move that, 1/4 inch seam down this side, and then we're going to add this corner to the other side when we're done with this one. And we'll be done. Alrighty, so here is my block. It has these little dog ears, they're called dog ears. You want to trim those off, And this should measure just about 6.5 inches. I did just measure this. It's a teeny tiny bit short. I don't know what happened with my 1/4 inch seam allowance, but it will measure, if you measure everything right and cut it and use the 1/4 inch seam, it will measure 6.5 inches square. And here it is all cut up nicely, 6.5 inches, ready to go for my quilt. And that is how you make the mosaic block, a 6.5 inch mosaic block. If you are joining in the 2021 Create with Claudia quilt, mystery quilt, it's called Stars of the Prairie, you can head over to my website and get all the details there. But this is the first block in it. It's for January. And if you stick around a few minutes, I will tell you exactly what you'll need for the quilt along. So if you're joining me for the 2021 Create with Claudia mystery quilt along, and I hope you are, it's going to be a fun one. This month we're making the mosaic block. This is for January, and we're going to be making 16 of them. And I know it's a lot, but let me give you the fabric requirements to make 16 of them. For the background fabric, which is this light green in my case, you can make it whatever color you want. For the background fabric, you need 1/2 yard. For fabric A, which is the center dark purple, you need 1/8 yard. And for all these other outside squares, and that's fabric B, you need 1/3 yard. And now I'm going to give you the cutting instructions for each of the units. So you're going to need to cut the following units to make 16 of these blocks for the January portion of the mystery quilt. From the background fabric, which is this light green in my case, again you can make whatever color you want. From the background fabric, you're going to need 32 squares, cut 2.5 inches square. That makes sense. Then you're going to need 16 squares, cut 4.25 inches. And that's still of the background fabric. Of fabric A, which is the center square, you're going to need 16 squares, cut 2 5/8 inches. And then lastly, of fabric B, which is this purple that represents this lighter purple, you're going to need 64 squares, cut 2 5/8 inches. So that's the cutting for the January mosaic block, and we're making 16 of them. The other thing you're going to need to do in January is cut some background squares, and this is only if you are joining in the 2021 Stars of the Prairie mystery quilt over on my website, www.createwithclaudia.com. You can get all the specifics, like how much total fabric you need, that sort of thing. But for January, you're going to need to cut background squares, and you're going to need to cut a lot of them. You're going to need a total of 1 7/8 yard of fabric to get all the fabric squares. And this is all of the background fabric. You're going to need 56 squares, and they're all cut 6.5 inches. So 56 squares cut 6.5 inches squares. And that's the other part of the January instructions for the 2021 mystery quilt. Of course, if you're just doing the block, then you don't need to worry about this. This is only for this one part of the quilt along, or the mystery quilt, excuse me. Okay, so what did you think about that little block? I really love it. I'm going to show you. I made it actually in 2 versions. This one, let me get the first one. This one is the one we made today with the green background and the purple flower. Well, to me it's like a little flower. So that's one version. And when I was testing for my quilt along, I wanted to show you that block as well. I did it all in purples. I always test my blocks before I put out a pattern, and this was my little tester block. So it's a little bit different, definitely different. It's very purple with lots of big polka dots, but it's also lots of fun. So it just goes to show you how different fabrics and different colors can really change up the look of a block. So this is my mosaic block at 6.5 inches. I hope you had fun making it today. I hope you make a quilt out of it, or I hope you're joining in my quilt along if that's why you're here. I am on social media at Create with Claudia, so stop by, take a look at all of the things I do. And as always, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. I love new subscribers. So thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.